Good afternoon and welcome to Lunch Break with the Rabbi. Today we're going to be discussing Ethics of Our Fathers, Chapter 5. As we know, on Thursday we do Ethics of Our Fathers. And as we explained in the past, that during the summer months, it is the custom that we study Ethics of Our Fathers, one chapter every week. Today, in Chapter 5, we're going to be taking paragraph 19 and 20 and discussing a few elements that are mentioned in Ethics of Our Fathers, Chapter 5. Ethics of Our Fathers begins in Chapter 5 in telling us that one who has the following traits is considered a student of Abraham, our forefather, and one who has three of another trait is considered a student of the wicked Bilam. Now, as you know, we have Abraham, our forefather, was the epitome of kindness. And in this week's Torah reading, that's a double Torah reading. In the second Torah reading, we read about a king, Balak, the Moabite king, who then hired Bilam, who was a non-Jewish prophet, who was able to know exactly and time it when God would be upset with the Jewish people and hoping to curse the Jewish people. Thankfully, with God's intervention, Bilam was not able to curse the Jewish people, but instead gave them the greatest blessings that we have. And many of the blessings that he said have been incorporated in our prayers that we say every single day. For example, Ma toivu elecha Yaakov, how wonderful are the tents of Jacob, u'mishkanesecha Yisrael. However, the Mishnah over here talks about contrasting the epitome of good versus the epitome of evil. And the Mishnah says as follows. What does it mean to be a student of Abraham, our forefather? It means to have a generous eye. They are not jealous. They're happy with what they have, a humble spirit, and a modest soul. They avoid unnecessary luxuries. While the students of the wicked Bilam, they are bad and an unsatisfied eye. They are jealous of others and are unsatisfied with what they have, an arrogant spirit and a greedy soul. Over here, the Mishnah goes on to say that because of this type of attitude and because of this type of behavior that they have and the contrast between the two, the students of Abraham, our forefather, what is the difference between them? Abraham, our forefather, students will eat and enjoy the benefits of their good traits in this world and inherit the world to come. While the students of Bilam will go down into a pit of destruction, as it says in Tehillim, you, God, will bring them down into a pit of destruction. Now, what is this telling us over here? What is the Mishnah focusing on, and why is it contrasting these two great individuals? While the great Avraham Avinu epitomizes the epitome of kindness, while Bilam epitomizes the concept of wickedness. There's a story which is brought in the Talmud about this wealthy non-Jewish man who threw this large fancy party. And the banquet hall was bedecked with the most fanciest of goods, beautiful food, every type of delicacy you can think of. And all of a sudden, during the party, you saw this individual started becoming very edgy and very nervous and upset. And all of a sudden, he started roaring angrily, throwing down every single beautiful dish that was there, destroying the food, ruining the beautiful things. And they asked him, what happened? So there was a great Talmudic scholar who was there, and his name was Rabbi Dustoi. And he asks him, what's the matter? Why are you going so crazy? So he says, because there's this soft nuts I asked the waiters to bring, and nobody brought it. So Rabbi Dustoi looks at him and says, are you out of your mind? The one little pleasure you couldn't have, because of that, you're destroying an entire party? He looks at him and he says, you Jews don't get it. You Jews have two worlds. You don't get to enjoy this one, you'll enjoy the world to come. For us, this is our only pleasure. If we don't enjoy it here, what are we going to enjoy? And therefore, if I don't get what I want, I torment the place. Rabbi Dustoi now understood, what does it mean? That a person who has such jealousy and such angst and such desires for materialism, they will go to the farthest measures and be destructive just because they don't get what they want. Unfortunately, we see this all too often, especially in our day and age, where we live in a time of entitlement, where many people will do things which are so destructive to their livelihood, to their family, to their business, to their ethics, just because of a temporary corporal pleasure that they're trying to achieve, not realizing that what they're doing is a road of destruction. Bilam was the same way. Bilam was a wicked person, and because he was so evil, He wanted to do anything to curse the Jewish people, though God told him you will not be able to curse the Jewish people. You're going to bless them. But because he was so hungry and starving for honor and glory, and his hatred was so embedded within him, he went to the furthest extreme to find some type of way to manipulate to be able to hate and to curse the Jewish people. And even in the extent that he wasn't able to curse the Jewish people, he gave some idea to seduce the Jewish people into certain. But what was Bilam's achievement? What was his life's goal? Was to look what the other person has, to take away, to hate. Over here, this teaches us the contrast of what we look forward in life. It teaches us such an important lesson. We are students and children inherently have the love of Abraham, our forefather. We are people who should seek love, compassion, but at the same time, not be filled with hate and anxiety. Just because we dislike a behavior of somebody, we don't fill our lives because of it. We don't fill our whole mind and occupy ourselves of how we can hate that person or how we can demean, put down. We live in a society that, unfortunately, just because I disagree with you, automatically you are the demon. You are dead. You are total bad. On both sides of the aisle. Let's look at it and understand. What does it mean to be a student of Abraham, our forefather, versus being a person of Bilam? Abraham, our forefather, was a person of humble and modest soul. He avoided unnecessary luxuries. What does this mean to us? He wasn't jealous. He was happy for another person. You did well. God bless you. Do great. It didn't bother him. He wasn't upset because somebody else has a success. We live in a society today that just because my neighbor has something, I have to have it too. Absolutely not. That's the ways of the wicked Bilam. They couldn't tolerate somebody else's success, somebody else's achievements. And therefore, immediately he hated them and did whatever it took, even destroyed his own, to be able to hate somebody else. We look in the recent events that are unfolding in the world. We look at a country that is divisive. Why? Because there's a lack of humility. Egotism is what causes and spurs hate. Egotism feeds animosity. Egotism feeds jealousy. Egotism says that just because I don't have it, you're not going to have it as well. We have to take a step back and look at our forefather Abraham. He was a uniter, brought the people together from all walks of life. It says that Abraham in his time and Sarah together brought people who were opposing him. He was called Ivri. He was on one side, everybody else was on the other, but he was able to unite people. Take a step and understand and ask yourself, is the post that I'm going to post today, is that going to bring people together or is it going to create more divisiveness? Every time we say something to somebody else or we post something on social media or we post an article, ask ourselves the question, is this coming from an egotistic method or from a humble spirit? Is this going to create divisiveness? And is this going to create animosity? Or is this going to create unity? I may not like the opinions of another person. I may disagree with everything they say. But do I have to be the one to perpetuate evil, divisiveness, and animosity? That's what Bilam said. Because I disagree with you, I will do anything, even if it means torturing and pulling down my own empire. But Abraham said, no, enjoy. You have your opinion, I have my opinion. We can still live and get along. This is what the Mishnah tells us. It's all about our attitude. There are many students of Abraham who seem to suffer and have so many. But it's a question of how they approach it. It's a question of what they do about it. Am I proud? Do I say I'm entitled to it and therefore I'm miserable that I don't have it? Or I say, well, God gave me what I have and I'm happy with what I have. And if God gives me more, I'll be happy with that as well. It's all in our attitude of how we look at what we have. Focus on what we have as a blessing. Realize that what we have is a blessing. Share the blessing with others. Which brings us to the next Mishnah. The next Mishnah is actually the first an introduction to Code of Jewish Law. Code of Jewish Law begins with this Mishnah, as this is the principal belief of Judaism and the guiding light of how we have to conduct our lives. And it says as follows. Yehuda ben Tema says, be as bold as a leopard, not to be intimidated by people who mock you for doing the right thing. Be light and swift as an eagle, not letting laziness win over you. Run as quickly and enthusiastically as a deer to perform the mitzvahs, and be as strong as a lion to overcome any obstacle in your path. Mimic the positive traits of these four creatures to fulfill the will of your Father in heaven. Over here, Rabbi Yehuda ben Tema sets in front of us exactly what the challenges in life are all about. You know, there are four animals that the Mishnah brings here, and they teach us important lessons on how we have and come to the temptation to sin, or any temptation that we come across. Number one is you need to be brave, like a leopard. Realize that God has given you the wherewithal and the strength to overcome any temptation you have. You're not fighting the fight alone. That if you are tempted to do something wrong, that means you have the evil inclination. That means you also have the positive and godly inclination and the power, the impetus to overcome it. Number two, know that when this tempting situation comes, you should be as light as an eagle, that you can run away from it. You're not compelled. Nobody's forcing you to do anything. Number three is run like a deer who constantly looks back to make sure they're out of danger. Don't rely on the fact that just because you defied the temptation this time, therefore it's not going to happen again. You may have gotten away from it this time, but what are you doing to make sure it doesn't happen again? You know, they say when you drive, you have to look forward in your windshield, but you always have to glance in your rearview mirror. You can't drive looking in the rearview mirror, but you can't drive forward if you don't glance back. Past events are only there to teach us that we shouldn't stumble on them again, but we cannot continue to drive looking in our rearview mirror. And then finally, fourth, be as strong as a lion to free yourself from those clutches of temptation. Even if you already fall into the temptation, you say, well, you know what? It happened to me. I fall to temptation. I'm too far gone. The lion teaches you, you can get up, fight back. It doesn't have to happen again. One of the things that the evil inclination does to us, and the word avera means to pass or to go over, that the first Chabad Rabbi explains in Tanya that one of the things about the evil inclination is that it gets you to do something wrong. And once you've done something wrong, it causes you to repeat, be a repeat offender. Meaning, once I keep on doing the same thing again, I become used to it, and I say it's my second nature. I can't help myself, and this is who I am. The Mishnah comes along and tells me, no, you don't have to be a repeat offender. Just because you did something wrong once, it doesn't make you who you are. You are a person stronger than that. Your behavior can force you into a box and into a position. But when you realize that you have the strength of a leopard, that God gives you the ability to overcome and stand up against all obstacles, you then can become stronger than the situation and overcome every challenge that comes your way. Rabbi Yehuda ben Tema over here that's mentioned in our Mishnah was a person who many say was the same as the Rabbi Yehuda ben Dama, who was killed by the Romans as one of the 10 special great scholars. This person, Yehuda ben Dama, was one of, you recall, we read on Yom Kippur and on Tisha B'Av about 10 special scholars that over a period of 250 years were killed by the Romans, so to speak, to pay back for what they did to their brother Joseph. Yehuda ben Dama was one of these individuals. And he was a person who lived through the challenges and in the time when the Romans tried to infiltrate within the Jewish people, stopping them from studying Torah. And he realized the challenges. He wasn't a person who was shy from challenges. And therefore, he set these four models of taking the animals and learning from them and saying that we know that we have an evil inclination. God created us in this world with different temptations and things that are very seductive to cause us to do things which are wrong. In fact, evil is more seductive than good. Evil is something which is easy to fall into that, as we mentioned before. It's easy to fall into that divisiveness, that easy, to spread that meme, put that line, get somebody angry. But what does this teach us? Taking these four role models, taking these four animals and learning from them and saying, number one, be as bold as a leopard, knowing that God has given you the ability to overcome any of your temptation. You are not a victim. Realize that you're not a victim to your circumstance. Yehuda ben Tema tells us, even though he went through terrible suffering, he said, I am not a victim to my circumstances. I can stand up and rise to the occasion and not only become stronger, but I can defy the odds. I can stand up against the challenges, and I can become stronger, better than those that try to take me down. Just like the leopard, just like the lion, just like the eagle, just like the deer. Learning from all of these And if you take the examples that he talks about over here he takes, for example, the eagle. The eagle that he talks eagle is relatively a heavy bird. There's some species of eagles weigh up to 15 pounds. Why then does he be as light as an eagle? But the word eagle means that it uses its ability to soar to the highest. It takes its wings and uses it to its potential. The concept that the Mishnah is telling us over here, and that Judaism demands of us, is God has given every single one of us God-given potentials and gifts and talents. And we need to be sure to use them and not claim victimhood and say, what should I do? My wings are clipped. I cannot do anything. And therefore the Mishnah says, you can stand up, rise to the occasion. This is the preface of Jewish law. This is the preface of Code of Jewish Law. This is the first section of Code of Jewish Law. Starts with this Mishnah telling us that any type of law that's mentioned in Code of Jewish Law is applicable, and every Jew can actually do it. Why? It's if we take the talents and learn from these models, we will be able to soar higher than we ever imagined, stand up to the challenges of every time, bring unity amongst our friends and family in the world, and realizing that we will capitalize on those God-given talents, making this world a holy place, a beautiful place, and not playing victim to the evil inclination, realizing that we can ever be stronger in conquering the evil that exists, making this world a godly place for God. Thank you for tuning in today to Lunch Break with the Rabbi. Tomorrow we'll be reviewing the Torah readings for today. It's a double Torah reading of Chukas and Balak. Tune in tomorrow, Lunch Break with the Rabbi at 1 p.m. Thank you and have a wonderful day.